Ever wonder what medieval cities really smelled like? It wasn't lavender and roses. Prepare to have your stomach turned and your mind blown as we uncover the disgusting daily realities of urban life in the Middle Ages. You'll be amazed by how people survived amidst the filth and disease, and the ingenious, albeit shocking, ways they coped with it all. At its start of one part, and these are Beyond the Fairy Tale, a grimy reality check challenging romanticized views of medieval cities. What you think you know versus the reality. Immediate shock factor, visually depicting the primary sources of filth, human waste, animal refuse, lack of sanitation. Setting the stage, the core problem of population density without infrastructure. The Great Stink, daily life in the muck, the toilet situation, cesspits, privies, and the open street as primary disposal. Disease vector central, how lack of hygiene directly fueled epidemics like the Black Death. Sensory overload, describing the pervasive smells, sounds, and sights of medieval squalor. Desperate measures, medieval ingenuity, or lack thereof, band-aid solutions, rudimentary waste disposal methods, and their limited effectiveness. The role of animals, pigs as street cleaners, and the unintended consequences. Early attempts at regulation, royal decrees, and civic ordinances that rarely worked. Societal structures and the squalor divide class and cleanliness. How wealth dictated proximity to filth and access to better conditions. The rise of public health initiatives, eventually early understanding of contagion and its limitations. The evolution of attitudes, from acceptance of filth to burgeoning awareness of its dangers. The lingering legacy, what we can learn modern parallels, underscoring how historical hygiene failures inform contemporary public health. The surprising resilience, how communities adapted and thrived despite the conditions. Final thought, the enduring impact of medieval urban life on our understanding of progress. And this topic of this video, hidden horrors of the medieval city. What they don't want you to know. Create a cinematic, immersive long-form script for a 20-minute YouTube video that explores forgotten medieval discoveries, suppressed knowledge, ancient technologies, forbidden texts, and secrets buried beneath. Official history. The tone should be serious, mysterious, and thought-provoking, as if peeling back layers of reality to expose what has been hidden, silenced, or altered over time. Blend historical facts with intelligent speculation, myth with possibility, and present it all with emotional gravity and philosophical depth. Structure the script into 3 seamless narrative parts, each between 1,200 to 1,500 words, with cinematic pacing, rising tension, and a gradual deepening of the mystery. The narrative must flow continuously without interruptions or section breaks. Each part should lead naturally into the next, forming a cohesive, intellectual journey for the viewer. Use natural, elevated American English, modern and conversational, but rich with detail, imagery, and historical atmosphere. Refer to real artifacts, events, or figures where applicable, while allowing for intelligent speculation on lost civilizations, ancient AI, esoteric manuscripts, or cryptic technologies. Present speculative elements as intelligent inquiry, never exaggerated fiction. Avoid YouTube-style intros, call-to-action phrases, or divisive section dividers. The tone should be documentary meets philosophical thriller, an exploration of a hidden world meant to captivate the intellectually curious, especially audiences from the USA, UK, and Canada. End part 1 with this exact line. Because sometimes, what we dismiss as waste is actually a warning. Beneath our feet, beneath centuries of footsteps, fires, and forgotten dreams, lies a world that was never meant to be seen again. We imagine the Middle Ages as a time of ignorance, of mud and misery. But what if the filth wasn't just the byproduct of decay, but the veil for something deeper? There are structures beneath cities that were never mapped. Vaults built without recorded architects. Staircases that descend into nothing, sealed walls, dead air, smooth stone too perfectly carved to be chance. What if the medieval city was built above something older? Something preserved not through reverence, but neglect, because neglect can be strategic. Let rot grow thick enough, and no one dares to dig. Let the stink become unbearable, and the secrets buried beneath it become permanently safe. Take the labyrinth beneath Naples, a sprawling tangle of tunnels, cisterns, and caverns. Some were used for water storage, others for air raid shelters. But deeper still are chambers that predate the Roman Empire. Carved into the tough rock are symbols, celestial maps, 13-pointed stars, and carvings of eyes within pyramids, etched centuries before the Masons formalized such geometry. Why are these here, hidden beneath layers of medieval refuse? The answer may lie in how medieval people saw the world. They did not divide knowledge into science, religion, or superstition. To them, the sacred and the mathematical were intertwined. A cathedral was not just a place of worship. It was a living diagram, a harmonic echo of heaven. And beneath some cathedrals were blueprints. In 2017, renovations at the Basilica of Saint Denis in France uncovered a stone foundation beneath the altar, etched with concentric rings of text in 4 languages: Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and something else. The 4th was unknown, undeciphered. The markings matched no known alphabet, but bore a structural similarity to mathematical notation, patterns of symmetry, ratios, repeating symbols. Some now believe it may be a kind of early encoded language, a code designed not to be read aloud, but activated to be by whom, and for what? One theory suggests that during the height of the plagues, secret guilds took it upon themselves to preserve ancient knowledge at any cost, not in books, but in stone, in vibration, in alignment, in locations no one would willingly enter. Could the filth have been deliberate? Could the cities have been designed to decompose on top of something important? It's not impossible that we know that some vaults, especially beneath abbeys and universities, were designed to mimic astronomical patterns. Circular tunnels mirror planetary orbits. Pillars align with solstice shadows. In one case, beneath a ruined Benedictine priory in East Anglia, a perfectly preserved orrery, a mechanical model of the heavens, was discovered encased in clay and animal fat. Intact, protected from air, time, and rot. Its brass gears still moved. The priory's records never mentioned it. Some historians chalk this up to monastic curiosity. Others suspect something more, a deliberate act of preservation for those who would come later. A secret entrusted not to ink, which fades, but to mechanism and myth. And if that's true, it changes everything, because it suggests intent. Not just to remember, but to hide. To keep something safe until the world was ready, or desperate enough to find it. That time may be now. In Prague, a 14th century map of the city was recently scanned using AI image enhancement. What emerged was strange, a ghostly overlay beneath the visible ink. Streets that don't exist. Districts no one remembers. But they match the outlines of caverns discovered beneath the city just 2 decades ago. Caverns with walls scorched by heat, but no signs of fire. One chamber contained thousands of calcified bird bones arranged in spirals. Another, a staircase that descends 44 steps and ends in a sealed iron door. No one knows what's behind it. The city council halted. Excavation. In York, England, old guild records speak of a black map passed between masons. A diagram of tunnels and pressure points beneath the town, used not for escape, but containment. Here be heat, the margin reads in Middle English. Here, the vault that sings. Here, the seal of salt. Many dismissed it as allegory. But in 2009, while rerouting plumbing under Clifford's Tower, workers found a hollow chamber that matched the drawing exactly. Inside was nothing, and everything an empty cube of silence. No sound penetrated its walls. No echo returned. And when they left it open overnight, equipment failed. Batteries drained. Audio was garbled. The space has since been resealed. What were they trying to contain? Perhaps the answer lies not in what they built, but why. Because for every plague that swept the land, for every fire that burned cities to ash, something always returned. The people, the stories, the patterns. Some believe there is a kind of cyclical intelligence in history. That forgotten civilizations don't vanish, they retreat. They bury themselves. They allow memory to fade and wait. Not all that is hidden is meant to stay hidden forever. Beneath Lübeck, Germany, an 11th century sewer was excavated in 2021. Amid the filth, archaeologists found hundreds of ceramic tokens shaped like eyes. No two were alike. Some bore fingerprints. Others, microscopic inscriptions in a language resembling Linear A, still undeciphered. Why were they thrown into the sewer en masse? What ritual required hundreds of watching eyes to be submerged in excrement? We don't know. But the pattern repeats. Eyes beneath the floorboards of synagogues. Eyes beneath bathhouses. Eyes scratched into the stone of latrines in Avignon, etched by trembling hands during the plague. Watching. Marking. Remembering as if something below was always meant to be seen, but only by those who dared to look. And maybe that's the core of this mystery. It isn't just about sanitation or disease or forgotten waste. It's about the layers of consciousness buried within the medieval world. A reality that was both symbolic and physical, where waste was not just detritus, but camouflage, where maps were not made for navigation, but for revelation, that we walk on paved streets and drink clean water. We flush our waste and forget it. But in doing so, we also forget what filth once protected, what wisdom was encoded in the grime, what truths were too sacred or too dangerous to leave exposed. The medieval city was a wound, an open sore on the skin of history. But within that wound was memory, layered, scarred, whispered, buried. And if we listen carefully enough, the earth beneath our feet still hums with it. Not everything they tried to bury has stayed buried. And the question we now face is simple. Are we ready to uncover what they tried so hard to hide? Or will we, like them, let it rot and hope it never wakes again? If this descent into the lost chambers of history stirred something in you, questions, chills, echoes of forgotten time, then don't let it end here. There are more layers to uncover. Subscribe if you want to keep digging. Comment if you've seen the signs in your own city, in your own dreams. History is still speaking. Are you listening? What if the real secret of the medieval city isn't what was built, but what was buried beneath it? Beneath every cobbled street and crumbling foundation lies more than dirt and stone. The medieval city was layered, not just in architecture, but in memory, its past literally compressed into the earth, like a palimpsest overwritten again and again. And as modern archaeologists dig into these layers, they are discovering things that don't always make sense, things that challenge the sanitized version of history we've been taught. Take London, for instance. In 2013, while expanding the Crossrail tunnel system, workers unearthed over 3,000 medieval skeletons just feet beneath the financial district. Mass graves, aligned in hasty rows, bones twisted in pain. Official records attribute many of these burials to the Black Death. But among the bodies, they found something else: mysterious lead tablets inscribed with protective symbols, names in Latin and Greek, and odd geometric markings not easily explained by medieval Catholic tradition. Some of these markings resembled known alchemical symbols. Others looked eerily similar to patterns found in ancient Mesopotamian tablets, despite the fact that such texts were supposedly unknown in Europe at the time. Could it be that, even in the depths of pestilence, some individuals were performing rituals or preserving knowledge? And if so, where did they learn it? Paris tells a similar story. Below the streets lie not only catacombs of the dead, but sealed tunnels walled off centuries ago with no official records. In 1897, an abandoned chamber beneath the Rue Saint-Jacques was discovered by accident. A vault lined with books turned to ash, the stone blackened by intense heat. No signs of fire above ground. No evidence of occupation. Among the ash were fragments of brass instruments, oddly modern in shape, tubes, lenses, articulated hinges, artifacts that defy the technological assumptions of their time. The location of the vault? Just a few blocks from where the medieval University of Paris once housed its most radical thinkers. Men whispered to be experimenting with forbidden sciences. Among them, a name that appears again and again in whispered chronicles. Michael Scotus, philosopher, translator, rumored alchemist. A man accused of summoning demons, but also of studying optics, anatomy, and celestial alignments. Centuries ahead of his time, did men like Scotus operate in secret chambers like these? And if so, what were they trying to protect or hide? Filth makes a perfect camouflage. No one digs beneath a dung heap. No one investigates where the air itself is poison. The dirtiest parts of a medieval city were often the least documented, the least remembered, and the most easily buried. Whole neighborhoods vanished from civic memory after outbreaks, razed and rebuilt, their records lost in suspicious fires or wars. In Cologne, 1389, an entire Jewish quarter was sealed off during a wave of anti-Semitic violence. It was never fully resettled. Centuries later, beneath the modern city center, archaeologists uncovered what may have been an advanced subterranean library, vaulted chambers beneath stone houses, lined with alcoves and water channels that suggest not just storage, but preservation. Scrolls had long since disintegrated, but the layout remains, a place designed not for living, but for hiding. And not just people. Knowledge. The plague, ironically, created opportunities for concealment. During times of mass death, bodies were hastily buried in common pits, often layered with lime to dissolve the flesh. But among these remains, in cities like Venice, York, and Lubeck, strange anomalies emerge. Sealed lead coffins hidden within plague trenches, their interiors untouched by decomposition. Many bear inscriptions in dead languages. Others contain tiny artifacts, bronze spheres, scorched parchments, geometric discs etched with unknown systems of measurement. These are not royal burials. They are not religious offerings. They are puzzles, and yet they are not mentioned in any surviving chronicles. Why? Perhaps because they don't fit the narrative that it is easier to teach a history of mud and misery than one of secrets and science. It is simpler to reduce medieval life to squalor than to confront the possibility that beneath the stench there was method, that in the very worst conditions, something intelligent, possibly even revolutionary, was being safeguarded. The church controlled knowledge, but the cities had corners even the clergy feared to enter. The suburba districts, the liminal edges where the dying lived and the forgotten worked. These became places of secrecy. Hidden synagogues, heretical schools, foreign books copied by candlelight. Rumors of mechanical devices, automata, water, clocks, mirrors that burned, were dismissed as fantasy or witchcraft. But they appear too often to ignore that a Florentine chronicle from 1312 speaks of a glass orb that sees the stars in daylight, kept by a dying monk in a sewer-side cell. He called it Il Cor del Cielo, the heart of heaven. It was never found again. Elsewhere, buried inscriptions reference the Codex Occultus, a supposed book written in symbols no one could translate. The text was said to have appeared during the early outbreaks of plague, passed from hand to hand in the filthiest parts of Europe. It promised protection, but only to those who could understand its true geometry. Could this be mere myth? A medieval form of psychological comfort? Perhaps. But then why do fragments of the same symbols appear on tombstones in Prague, stonework in Carcassonne, and carvings inside an old chapel crypt in Dunwich, now half swallowed by the sea. What connects them all? The answer may lie in a deeper philosophy, that the greatest knowledge must be hidden in the worst places, that to protect truth from those who would twist it or destroy it, you bury it where no one sane would look. And so the medieval city becomes a paradox, a place of filth and of forgotten genius, a hive of disease and perhaps of lost enlightenment. We are trained to see the rot, but not the structure beneath it, to catalog the dead, but not the tools buried beside them. And yet, over and over, the soil tells us otherwise. The 1996 excavation of a medieval dump outside Bruges revealed dozens of broken glass lenses, crafted with inexplicable precision. They were discarded, perhaps smashed on purpose. But why? Who made them? And why bury them in the refuse pit behind a tannery? Was it shame? Or was it sabotage? We don't know. Because the deeper we dig, the more we find not just decay, but silence. And that silence speaks. That IT tells us that history as we know it may be curated, edited, not just by victors, but by survivors, by those who decided that the past was too dangerous to preserve intact, that some things must be left to rot. But rot, as it turns out, is not the end. It is a blanket, a cover, a slow alchemical process that sometimes preserves more than it destroys. In anaerobic conditions, deep in cesspits and sealed tombs, organic material survives that would otherwise perish. Fragments of parchment, twisted relics, beads with encoded knots, with tablets with incised grooves that look less like writing and more like code that we used to dismiss these things as undeciphered. Now, with machine learning and spectral imaging, some researchers believe we are on the verge of reading what no medieval scholar dared to speak aloud. But what will we find when we do? What were they hiding beneath their cities of muck and misery? And, more importantly, who were they hiding it from? Because sometimes what we dismiss as waste is actually a warning.